You're streaming a bit.
Let me look out there and see the smiling faces this morning, right on time there. Glad you're here this morning. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to go ahead and get started now, please. Thank you.
Hey, glad to see everybody. I have to tell you that I'm so encouraged as a church, as the part of the body of Christ here in the Somerville area, that we're taking another step in strategic planning. Really, look at strategic planning. What we're going to look at today is a framework for how we continue to go forward in our ministry here. And I say framework because you're all going to have a part in this as far as putting together pieces of this and the how-to. The biggest thing that we want to do as a congregation is to continue to be intentional in growing as individuals, intentional as building relationships, and really being intentional in bringing more hearts and minds to the Lord Jesus Christ. When you look at the plans, which we'll go through a little bit today and over the next few weeks, one thing that is really consistent in these plans, and as I was looking at these for the umpteenth time yesterday, you see this gorgeous picture of the vineyard, and it says relationships formed, faith strengthened, right? You flip it over on the back, a letter from Lynn and David back then, relationships formed, faith strengthened. If I flip this one right here, what do I see right on the front cover of it? Relationships formed and faith strengthened. The back cover of the letter from Don Allen and Lynn, relationships formed and faith strengthened. There's a continuing theme in this, and back in, as you'll hear today, in the early days, the idea was to lay out some plans to continue to grow in Christ. And when we laid those plans out, and you reflect back on them, there are many similarities when you take a look at the spiritual growth continuum and things like that. But when you reflect back on the first plan, what that plan said as you got into it was, wouldn't it be great if we could build stronger relationships and a stronger leadership team? And reflect on that a second. From the years that have went by, more and more people have become involved in leading various efforts. Go across the whole campus, or the whole effort that goes on. You'll see input from people that before didn't have a part, and they became leaders in the planning. We talked about how do we develop a stronger adult education system, and you look at where we're at now in the offerings that are there and the growth there and the attendance. That was something that was laid out in this particular plan that we would do. And so you go down through many of the things. We wanted to get more people involved in the home groups and encourage each other. And you can see, if you look around, that there are many different meetings of people all throughout the weeks, not only on Sunday night, on building closer bonds with each other. We said, boy, we want this youth ministry and the children's ministry to grow and attract more people. If you take a look around, of course we have opportunities right now, but you take a look around and you look at a strength in our congregation, I'd have to point back to people seeing that youth ministry and the children's ministry and coming here because their children are rich. So again, and then there was the whole issue around resource planning and stewardship. You may not see that as much, but there are a lot of people that are working on the financial aspects, the planning aspects, many things. So it does make sense to the glory of God to lay out plans and write them down. And as you look at the evolution of the plan, those things don't go away. And there are so many other ministries in this congregation that are vital to us, but we're pointing out with this second phase of this strategic plan, areas that we think that we can grow in, and there are just so many of you that are pouring talent and ability into this congregation. And
There's more chairs down front. Y'all come on down. Yeah, I'm going to call y'all out. Come on. Come on.
Good to see everybody here. So really, with that said, I'm enthused with the direction that we're going in, that we actually are laying plans out, that you're going to have the opportunity to be highly involved in this. And when I summarize it down, it's those things still are at a stage where they will continue on. As example, the women's ministry, very strong, right? Men's ministry, not as strong, and we're going to put more effort into that. So you'll see those things. But the emphasis is not only to be internally focused, and there are a lot of you, I'm not saying that we haven't been externally focused. You look at the missions efforts, $100,000 that has went to missions outside our congregation. But where can we do a better job? And that's what this is all about. So I'm going to leave this plan opening to Lynn, because I know he's going to do an outstanding job because he's been thinking about this for a long, long time. But thanks for all the effort that's went into this and your love for the Lord.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Don't take my paper now. All right.
I usually do that.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. It's so good to have you here with us. This is the beginning of our strategic plan rollout. This is strategic plan 2.0, so that's pretty exciting. You'll notice the year is 2028 because that's around about the year that we're wanting for this thing to culminate and to wrap up. We don't want to put a hard deadline necessarily because some things take longer than we might think, and so we want to make sure we do have a deadline, but not a necessarily hard one. They're not looking at a certain day. We're going to talk this morning. We're going to intro the strategic plan. We're going to walk through it very quickly this morning. There may not be a ton of time this morning for questions, but there will be the next 2 Sundays, I promise you. Okay, there will be a little time this morning, but the next 2 Sundays, for most of you just now put your hands, right? So you may not have a lot of questions yet, but the next 2 Sundays, we've purposely put more time for questions in. So please show up. These are being not only live streamed, but they're going to be recorded so you can watch them on YouTube if you miss a Sunday. So then, because today and the next 2 Sundays is our rollout plan, okay? So our worship service is also going to be focused on the themes and ideas that come out of our strategic plan. So I thought it'd be important to talk about why we're here and how we got here. Right? We're here because of a certain thing, right? And this is true in the history of the church in general. Most of the things that we've done have been reactions to things that have happened. And so several years ago, the elders of the church at the time, realized that there were some things not going well. There were some things that needed to go better. And so they took, in my opinion, a very humble step and said, we need to get some help with this. And so they brought in Triangle 2, particularly a guy named Wes Bender, it's his company, that does consulting with churches, and they brought him in, and he started having meetings and talking to people and figuring out what was going on and what the issues were. He did a survey, and a lot of things that we couldn't probably have done internally, he did for us and partnered with us. And if you were here when Wes was here, you know how awesome he was and what a great job he did. And so what Wes introduced us to was that we need a kind of a operating system. Everybody here has updated your phone or your computer at some point, right? With a new operating system. And every time you get a new operating system, there's some things that you got to figure out. There's some different things that it does that it didn't do before, and vice versa. And so it's not that we wanted to be a completely different church. It's just we needed to do some things differently. Okay? We need to have some different focus on things. And so I'm going to talk through a few of those things. But the main one is that we wanted to have a more strategic outlook on things as a church, and we'll talk about why that's so important. So the first thing, as Ken mentioned, that we adopted was the vision of relationships formed, faith strengthened. We wanted a very short, succinct way to say this is what we care about as a church. This is what matters to us above everything else. Okay? That's important. It's really important to have something like that. And so it's not just words on a wall. It's not just something we say. I want to show you how we use this in our teams. Okay, so this is a chart that we can use to talk about what should we do and what should we do. If we're thinking about a new program or a new effort, or if we're thinking about evaluating something we're already doing, this is one way we think about it. Okay, so The vertical axis there is how much does it have an impact on our vision? How tied is it to our vision? Does it really form relationships and strengthen faith? The bottom is the resources. Is it going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money? Right? Is it going to take up a lot of efforts, high or low? So, if you look at the top two boxes there, if something is high vision, meaning it's very tied to our vision and it pushes our vision forward, and it's low resource, it doesn't cost us much, well, that's an easy guess. Right? We're going to do that. We're going to do that thing, and we're going to do a lot of it. Right? We're going to promote it and push it and pour more into that because it's low resource, but it's very tied to our vision. If it's very tied to our vision, box 2, if it's very tied to our vision, but it's also high resource, meaning it takes a lot of time, effort, money, okay, then we want to look at that. We want to say, is this something we really want to do? It really pushes our vision forward, but it costs a lot. Is there any way to get the cost down? But we need to make sure we define why we do what we do, okay? If we look at low vision, okay, so something is low vision, but it doesn't cost much, right? It's low resource. Then we want to think about that again. So box 2 and box 3 are the ones we really want to think about, right? We want to assess that. It's not really tied to our vision. Is there some way we can get it more tied to our vision? Does that make sense? Is there some way we can use what we're doing? Let me give you an example. So when we first started thinking about this, building and grounds was something that you would think, well, that's not very tied to our vision. It's just taking care of buildings and making sure everything's working and fixed. But at the time, Earl Folger was our deacon over building and grounds, and he took it upon himself to really start thinking through, and he and I had a lot of conversations at the time. How does building and grounds relate to our vision? And we said, we started thinking about it more, and it really does relate to our vision, but what we need to do is when we think about building and grounds, we need to think about our vision. How does our building help us form faith, strengthen faith? How does it help us form relationships, right? Instead of just fixing things, let's think more strategically, more vision-oriented towards our building and grounds. Does that make sense? So it didn't seem to be tied, but the problem was we weren't really thinking that way. And we started thinking more that way. And we've been doing that since Don Allen has come in, and now Fred Otto helps us with that. And there are now relationships formed around the building and grounds that we have. There are relationships being formed. If something is high resource but low vision, then we just don't do it. It's not worth it. If it costs a lot and it's not tied to our vision, then we stop it, we get rid of it. So this is a decision matrix. You've probably seen something similar to this. So when I say we have this vision of relationships formed in faith strengthened, they're not just words. We want to really assess everything we do as a church based on that. And so what a lot of people have done over the years since I've been here, and they come to me and say, hey Lynn, we want to do X. And I go, okay, let's talk about it. Is it tied to our vision? Does it push it? If not, how do we figure out how to make it do that? Right? Because we're not going to just do things. How many of you know there's so many things we could do as a church, right? There are countless things we could do as a church. But we want to do things that are tied to what matters to us as a church. And so this is the way we do that. So relationships formed, faith strengthened was one of the first things that we, part of that kind of new operating system. We also formed a leadership ministry team. That is all of our staff and deacons and shepherds and ministry team leaders. We meet once a year to do a planning meeting. There's also other people that don't necessarily have a title role that are a part of that we bring in and ask to help us make that happen. So some of you have been at that meeting before, or multiple meetings. We've had 6 of them now, which blows my mind. But we've had 6 of those meetings now every February. But more than that, team is something we have made a part of everything we do. Okay, when we start something, when we think about something, my first question is, okay, what team are you going to form? Right? You say, well, I'm going to do it on my own. No, you're not. You're going to do it as a team. You're going to pull someone else into this ministry. Right? You're going to ask someone else. You're going to do this as a team. So everything we do now is team-oriented. Every ministry we have. And if it's not, then we ask, why is it not, and how can we fix that? Because we want things to be team-oriented. That forms relationships, it keeps people from burning out, and it makes things sustainable. Make sense? All right, so leadership ministry team. That's been very important. Everything's a team effort. We brought in an associate minister, first myself, and now Don Allen. So if y'all don't know, I was hired I'm actually coming up on my 6 years full-time at the church, which again blows my mind. So I was hired as the associate minister, but that was more than just hiring a person. That was making that function of that job kind of the hub of everything we do. And so our associate ministry position, which Don now sits in, is the hub of all of our ministry in the church. If you want to know what's going on in the church, he's the best person to ask. I promise you. He doesn't know everything, but he knows most of it. And he's the hub. That position is the hub. So he keeps the high level view of everything, right? So that our deacons can focus on their stuff and the ministry leaders can focus on their stuff. And he's keeping the big picture in mind all the time and coordinating that. If you want to do something in this church, if you say, hey man, I'd really like to make this happen, that's the guy you go to. Don Allen will help you make it happen, okay? He knows how we do things. He knows the processes. He will help you make it happen. He will equip you for that work. But he'll probably have a conversation with you first about what? Is it tied to our vision, right? Is it tied to our vision? Like, we'll have that decision matrix conversation. So we really made that associate minister position a really important position in this church. And so, again, I sat there first, and when they hired me, they said, we're not hiring you to be David's, he was the preacher at the time, we're not hiring you to be his relief, right? We're hiring you to be the associate minister. So when David stepped down and he assumed I was just going to take over, and the shepherds asked me if I'd take over, I said, why? I'm only focused on being associate minister here. I haven't even thought about that yet. So it took me some time to really make that decision to move up into the preaching position. All right. And then one of the other big things we did, there's a lot of others, but this is one of the big ones, is we really pushed for our shepherds to be spiritual leaders and not managers. Okay? We don't want our shepherds managing the church. So one of the things that I have said since I've been here, as I kind of process through this, is people would say, well, I need to go get the shepherd's permission for something. I said, no, that's not how we do it. You tell the shepherds what you want to do. You tell them your plans. I'll help you. When I was associate minister, I'll help you put those plans together. Don Allen will help you put those plans together. Present them to the shepherds, and the shepherds can give feedback. But we're not going to shepherds for decisions all the time. That's not how it works. We've pushed decision making and authority down to our deacons and our ministry team leaders and said, you guys make decisions. You guys are in charge of your budgets. You guys choose what needs to happen. We'll keep informing the shepherds so that they're not out of the loop and they're not unaware of what's happening. But we're not going to them for every decision, right? They are now our spiritual leaders and not our managers. So if you're going to the shepherds and saying, hey, I need your permission for something, you're already speaking the wrong language, so to speak. Because that's not really, there's very few things that the shepherds have to make the decision on. Hiring is one of those. Big budget items, yes, the shepherds make those decisions. But at the end of the day, we want our ministry team leaders, we want our deacons and staff to be making those decisions, keeping the shepherds informed. That keeps them out of being managers, okay? And that's been really important, and they want that, okay? I'm not speaking for what I want, I'm speaking for what they want. And it's been really good to have that. One of the problems we had at the time was that a lot of times shepherds had been managers, and we needed to move away from that. But as I said, the big thing that we've really done is we've moved to more strategic outlook and planning, okay? And what we mean by that is we want to look forward to what we're doing and be purposeful about the journey we're heading on, the direction we're moving, okay? So we are planning a route because we'd rather be on a purposeful journey as a church than be sitting still and stagnant. Can everybody agree with that? Would you rather be in a church that sits still and does the same thing they've always done? Or would you rather be in a church that's pushing forward and trying to grow and trying to be on a journey? And that's what we're trying to do. And in order to do that, you have to plan. You can't get away from that, right? If you're going to go, in fact, if you go on a trip, what do you have to do? You have to plan that trip out, don't you? You have to decide your destination. You have to decide how you're going to get there. You got to decide why you're doing it, right? You have to make all these decisions. That's just planning. So we'd rather be on a purposeful journey than sit still and grow stagnant. Now, I know strategy is not a word we use a lot in the church, although over the last few years we've used it a lot. So I want to kind of demystify that word just a little bit, okay? I come obviously from a military background, and so that word makes all the sense in the world to me, and I know what it means in a Navy situation. But what does it mean for us? At the end of the day, all it really means is we're aligning our values and our actions to get to a certain outcome. That's all we're doing. We're saying this is what we value, and this is what we want to do. Do those match up? Okay, and how is it going to get us to where we want to go? That's it. That's all planning is. That's all strategy is. We want to get to a certain position. This, Ken talked about the last strategic plan. It got us here to where we are now, that we can start a new plan. And we're hoping this plan, not hoping, this plan will get us to the next plan. And so on and so on and so on. We want it, but this is something that we're going to do, continue to do as a church. I'm going to throw this up here real quick just to kind of show you in our context what I'm talking about. So strategic strategy is big level, okay? Big picture, long term, right? Vision and mission. That's what we're talking about when we talk about strategy. So as you look through this booklet, it does not have all the details of how we're going to do this over the next 3 years. It doesn't, because it's strategy. It's not what we might would call tactical, right? Which is, that's the actual doing. That's the actual, what are we going to do specifically from week to week, month to month to get where we're going to go. Does that make sense? That's tactical. And again, I know these are words we don't use in the church. And this is a little different than the military, but operational would just be all the stuff we're always going to do. We're not going to stop doing the things we're already doing in order to execute this plan. We're going to keep doing all the things we're doing, or at least most of them. We may reevaluate some of them, right? Based on our values and where we're moving. All right, let me ask you real quick. Let me just get a couple of answers on this. What does a church do if it has no vision for the future? What do you think? What happens? What does church do? It dies. It perishes. Stops growing. What's that? Lose members.
Inward focused.
Yeah, it becomes inward focused. Absolutely. At the end of the day, a church that has no vision just does the same things they've always done and gets the same results. And probably that may work sometimes, it may not. It may work for a little while, but it's not going to work long term. What happens if we don't plan? Nothing. Okay. Yeah, you drift, right? I mean, you see it in your own families, right? Or your own careers, or your own, things that you want to do in your personal life. If you don't plan it, it doesn't happen, right? So this is a phrase that we always used to hear. Failing to plan is planning to fail, right? Failing to plan is planning to fail. It is a decision. If you decide not to plan, you've made a decision. And your decision is going to get you what you want. So we definitely want to keep doing this, and this is something that's important to us. Here's some things that we have seen. This is not, I don't think this, I've seen it and I know it. I've witnessed it as we put together and executed our first strategic plan. I've seen it unify leaders, ministries, and members. Okay? Having a specific, direction that we're moving, a goal that we're headed towards. And not just, hey, let's love God and love people. That's great, but that's very unspecific. But having very specific things. This is where we're headed. This is what we're doing. Right? When you see a team of people in our church that have hey man, we really want to accomplish this thing. Man, it brings them together. It forms relationships, right? And it unifies us and helps us move forward. It's been really cool to see that unity that takes place when we do this. It provides direction that leads to growth. And now when I say growth, I want y'all to very much hear, I am not saying numerical growth. In fact, I'm not primarily even thinking about that. Okay? If we grow spiritually, if we are growing closer to God, if we are growing more in our biblical wisdom and knowledge, if we are growing in love and compassion and mercy, guess what's going to happen? We're going to go numerically. That's just going to happen. I'm not worried about that. What we want to worry about is, are we growing closer to God? Are we growing spiritually as individuals, as families, and as a church? So when I say growth, I want you to make sure you're not hearing numbers. That's not what we're focused on. And then the last thing, and this is just one other thing, there's many other things, but it motivates and inspires positive action. What we're hoping, I'm just going to lay that out on the table, is we're hoping this plan, as we walk through it the next 3 Sundays, is it inspires you. It gets you excited about what we're doing as a church, right? That we're re-envisioning our next steps, and we're seeing where we can go, and you're like, man, that's awesome. How can I be a part of that? I want to be a part of that. That's what we're hoping. And here's where we're going to focus on the next 2 Sundays, on how you fit into this plan and what you can do. So I promise you that is very much a part of what we want to talk about. Our last plan, Ken's already mentioned it, so I'm just going to go real quickly. It was more inward focused because that's what we needed. We needed to be more inward focused. We needed to shore some things up and to fix some processes, right? I needed to come on board, and that position had to be kind of steadied. And so we needed to focus more inwardly in our first plan. And some people kind of were like, hey, this seems kind of inward focusing. And I would, yeah, it is. It was exactly. It's intentionally inward focusing. Not trying to be selfish, but to say we need to fix some things among us first. Then, now, we can focus more outward. Does that make sense? If you're not healthy, then how are you going to be any good to anyone else? And so that's what we decided. We need to be a little bit more inward focusing for a little bit, and then now we can focus more outward. Okay? So that's why these two plans are a little bit different. We had 6 priority areas in the first one. And again, this set us up, that plan set us up for this plan. This plan is going to set us up for our next plan. And on and on and on. So when we were putting this plan together, we were already thinking about the next plan. Man, it's already dreaming. What can we do with that next plan? What are some big things that we can dream up and think about and go, man, let's do that next. That's going to be awesome. But we got to get through this plan to get to that point where we can do that. Right? So that's what we're doing. Okay. Any questions real quick about anything we've talked about so far?
Yeah, of course.
Yes?
I might be jumping ahead, but let me know if I am.
Well, I'll tell you if you are.
Yeah, I'm sure. Many times we use the word vision. Where can I find this vision? Is it in the last strategic plan? It's not in this one. And I know I get that I'm supposed to maybe innately know part of that vision, but you're leaning super heavy into it. So I think it'd be beneficial for me to know what that vision is.
So relationships form faith strengthened is our vision.
That's a motto. So if we walk away from a motto, what's our vision? Is just to have strengthened relationships and faith. Am I out of bounds with that question? I don't know.
No. So that has been our vision. That informs everything we do. It's not just a motto. It's way more than a motto, I would say. It informs everything we do. Is what we know. I think we know what the general purpose of the church is. We're going to talk about this a little bit later. What we need to decide is, why do we exist as a congregation? And so that's what we decided is relationships formed, faith strengthened. Is why we exist. And so those 4 words inform everything we do. Those 2.
So that's ultimately
our vision
for the purpose of this 3-week.
Yes, well, and then this plan is our short-term, 3-year, 4-year vision of where we're headed.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm willing to let it go for a couple more weeks.
Okay.
See where we go with that vision.
Okay, any other questions? All right, Don Allen's going to walk us through. One thing I want to say is, as he's coming up, this booklet doesn't have all the details, okay? So it's if you're thinking, man, there's not a lot of details in here, that's purposeful. It's strategic. We're going to decide those details as we move forward. Okay?
Thank you, Lynn, for that. So, this is our strategic plan. If you've not got one yet, afterwards, go and get one for your family. And if you don't have one, and you're sitting next to someone who does, share right now and look at each other's copies. That'd be great. So this is our plan, strategic plan, being a good neighbor. And our first 2 pages here, it's the shepherd leadership. So I'm not going to go too much into detail, but I encourage you to please read about our shepherds, Ken, Bill, David, Larry, and Scott. And they also have a note from the shepherds here. Our shepherds have emphasized that this plan is an invitation to deepen our faith through action. Jesus commanded, go and do likewise. His command calls us not to just feel love, but to show it, especially to those in need. I encourage you to read the note from the shepherds. I'm on page 4 and 5 now. This is just our content page. That will help you get to the pages you need to. And then page 5, this is our leadership team functional roles. These are the title leadership roles in our congregation. We have elders, their spiritual care and oversight. Ministers, they're to equip the body. Deacons, they serve ministry needs. And then we have our ministry team leaders. And they organize and lead service areas. And there's a lot more that goes into these than I have said. But God designed the church with roles that help each part function well. Our leadership structure supports spiritual health, service, and growth. Everyone in leadership is here to serve and equip the body. And there are other ways that are outside of these roles that you can serve as well. We're at page 6 and 7 now. This is our mission, to be good neighbors. So, page 6, we're called to love, starting with those closest to us. But we can't stop there. This page shows us how our mission expands outward, intentionally, moving beyond comfort to reach those farther out. To be good neighbors, that's our mission. And this is something Glenn's going to speak more on this morning. But this plan is built on the story of the Good Samaritan. Jesus redefines neighbor not as a category, but as an action. He flips the question from, who do I have to love, to how will I show love? So pages 8 and 9, I'm over there now. Why do we plan? Okay. Well, we plan because God is a planner. He had a plan of salvation from the beginning. Our church has always responded in love, whether through disaster relief or other missions that our congregation is involved in. This plan helps us continue that legacy with focus. Strategic planning in the church helps us clarify our direction and stay aligned with God's mission. Right? We're not trying to control outcomes, but rather participate in what God is already doing more faithfully and more effectively. So page 10, this is our priority areas. Okay, so I'm not going to get too much into the detail here because the next 2 weeks we're going to be talking more about these priority areas. So I please encourage you to read over these before next week and continue coming to class so you're able to hear more about these. But we've identified 4 priority areas to emphasize over the next few years. These are where we believe God is calling us to invest more time, talent, and resources. Everyone will be able to help get involved in these areas in the next, and like I said, in the next few weeks, we'll be talking more about these. Equipping the flock, men's ministry, community impact, and facility refurbishment. Now, just because we have these on here, and Lynn pointed to this too, just because we have these priority areas doesn't mean we let our other things that we're doing in the church go. No, we'll still be focusing on that, but these are our priority areas. Equipping the flock, men's ministry, community impact, and facility refurbishment. And you'll find those on pages 11, 12, 13, and 14. Like I said, we'll go over those more in the coming weeks. So page 15 is where I am right now. How do you fit in? Well, everyone has a role to play. You don't need a title to make a difference, okay? Simply being present, praying, or joining a team helps fulfill our mission. This plan is not just for leaders, it's for everyone. in the congregation. It's for you. And this is something, again, that we're going to get more into how you fit in the coming weeks. We'll go more into detail here with this in the coming weeks. This is our, if you notice, this is our spiritual growth continuum on pages 16 and 17. This is something that you will notice that was in our previous plan. We want to grow spiritually as individuals and as a church, and this continuum helps each of us consider, where am I now? What's my next step in faith and involvement? And this is something that we'll use in our Bible classes and in other upcoming things. And I also want to take a look at our servant leadership structure. This is the inverted pyramid model. So, oh, I'm sorry, page 18. Page 18. Okay, so if you look at this, we see visitors and guests, and then we see new members, then we see members, one-time volunteers, ongoing volunteers, ministry team leaders, staff, deacons, shepherds. So, when you look at that, where are you right now on that pyramid? Okay, in our church, leaders aren't at the top, they're at the bottom serving. We believe servant leadership is the model Jesus gave us. Our leadership team is here to equip you. And if you look at this and you're like, well, I'm still in that visitor mode or that guest mode, and you've thought about placing membership, please go see one of our shepherds and talk to them about that. If you have been here for a while and decided that's something you want to do, that'd be awesome, and you could talk to our shepherds about that. Before I go to the last 2 pages here, is there any questions? Is there any questions anybody has so far about the strat plan? This was just a quick walkthrough. If I walked too fast, just let me know. Okay. So this page right here is just our ministers and staff, our paid staff. So myself, Lynn, then we have Ann Miller and Kara Driscoll. And in the back here, this is a note from Lynn and I. And we're not trying to create perfect people. We're trying to create a space where grace can work. So let's keep reaching out with God's love. Let's be neighbors in the way Jesus called us to be. And please read this note. I encourage you to go through the strat plan, and if you haven't gotten one yet, afterwards you could get one from the table. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
All right. That inverted pyramid is actually a really important concept, again, that came from Triangle 2. What we want is, as people come in, right, as they visit us and maybe start attending, is we hope that they place membership, they start volunteering, they get involved, right, and you move down the pyramid. Not everyone's going to move all the way down. But the point being is that our shepherds are our foundation for us as far as our leadership is concerned. And then it's deacons, and then staff, right? And so we support, but the stronger that base is, the more we can support. And really at the top of that pyramid is our community. We are supporting work that we can do in our community through all of that. And so every one of those are important. We need every one of those people. So as Don Allen said, we're hoping that if you kind of see where you are, that you're willing to maybe move down a little bit. If you're just volunteering for things every once in a while, we're hoping that maybe you just decide to join a ministry team. And then what we look for in our ministry teams is who's going to be our next ministry team leaders, right? And then from that sometimes comes deacons. And then from our deacons, most likely come shepherds, right? And we may even be hiring more staff down the road as well. So there's opportunities all over the place for you, and we need more people involved. All right, as we finish up this morning, I'm preaching on this this morning in our worship, so I'm not going to go over it too much. But one of the questions we're asking ourselves and we're trying to continue to answer as we go through these plans is, who are we as a congregation? Who are we? If we don't continually reevaluate that and ask ourselves, right, what can happen is some of the things we talked about earlier. You can become stagnant. You can become listless, like directionless. If we don't ask ourselves that as individuals every once in a while, who am I and who am I trying to be? Right? If you don't have an idea for that, when I would talk to young people in the military all the time, I'd say, who do you want to be in the future? Well, do you have an idea of the man or woman you want to be down the road? And most of them didn't have any clue. And I said, well, if you don't have a goal, if you don't have a direction, where are you headed? You're just gonna wander. So we have to continually ask ourselves that question. Who are we as a congregation? Another way to ask that is, why does this congregation exist? We could all just go to North Charleston or Essex Village or Azalea Road. We could all just go to another church. Why does this church exist? Why does this congregation exist? Are we only here so that we don't have as far to drive? Or do we have a purpose? And obviously we do, I think, right? And I think that's why people come and stay, is because they see that we have a purpose and a meaning for what we're trying to do. Okay? And that's why we have people that drive all the way from Bono and all over the place. Some of you drive a long distance to be here. You probably pass a church or two on your way. Now, that's not saying we want to compete with those churches. I'm not saying that at all. Or that we're saying we're better than those churches. But if there's something that's attracting people here, we want to keep doing that. And so why does this congregation exist? Can we say that very clearly? And why we're doing what we're doing? We want to continue to ask those questions. And so over the next 2 or 3 years, 3 or 4 years here, what we want to do through this plan is we want to focus even more intentionally on this idea of being a good neighbor. So our first plan was tending to the growing vineyard. We were trying to shore some things up and get our structure and things inwardly going better so that we could be poised for what we want to do now. This is a much more outward focused plan, and we want to focus more outward. That doesn't mean we necessarily want to start a whole bunch of new programs and efforts. We want to take what we're already doing and see how can we focus it more outward. How can we focus on bringing people here? How can we focus on going to them? And one of the things I'm going to say this morning in the sermon is sometimes as a church, it's easy to focus on, well, if people just show up, we'll love on them, okay? But we need to go to them. We need to be going out to the people and making sure that that's a part of what we're doing as well as a church. As Don Allen already kind of pointed, the man who's the expert in the law who came to Jesus, he wanted to know who was his neighbor, and Jesus told him, no, you be a neighbor, right? He turned it from a justification category to, no, it's your mission to go be a neighbor, okay? To go and to show mercy to those around you. And so that's what we want to focus on over these next few years and be very intentional about that in the way we're equipping one another. So we think these priority areas will get us there. One of the things that happened when we did the first plan, we said, okay, here's our priority areas, and some people said, well, mine's not, well, what I'm doing is not a priority. That's not fair. Why is my thing not a priority, right? And the thing I said is, if you've ever seen The Incredibles, if everyone's special, then no one's special. If everything's a priority, then nothing's a priority. We have to say these are the things that are going to help push us forward. That doesn't mean the other things are unimportant, right? We're going to continue to do our children's ministry and our youth program and everything, right? We're still going to do those things. It's not that they're unimportant. But what we're saying is these are things that we think can help push us forward and what we want to focus on to move us forward so that we can continue to do great things here in this place. All right, we got a couple of minutes here. Again, I'm going to preach on this on Luke chapter 10 this morning. We'll think more about the theme itself. Does anyone have any final questions this morning? I know we walked through that really fast. Does anybody have any questions now? Yes, Dow.
I see the plan, and the thing that I wonder about is, what is the plan to serve others?
Okay, so the priority areas are focused on that, and what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how to accomplish those plans as we execute this plan. So I don't have all the answers to that right now. because that's what we're going to do as we execute this plan. Okay? So I don't have details for you. When we talk about refurbishment, I'm not going to say, well, we're going to do this, this, and this. I have no idea right now what we're going to do. That's something we are going to decide as a church through groups and through teams and planning processes, right? We're going to make that happen.
We are the army of God.
Agreed.
And I've never seen an army that didn't organize to go out and do battle.
Okay?
Our battle is to serve others.
That's what we want to do.
You know, you have a natural thing that we have started in our group, which is the home groups,
Mm-hmm.
which can be smaller groups that can actually, if they're charged correctly, which is.
Dal, I don't mean to cut you off, but we're closing up. Do you have a question? Do you have a question? Okay.
I have a
All right.
question.
Yes.
Are you, it's an easy one. Are you guys taping this so that
Yes.
we can access a week that we might miss?
Yes.
Okay. perfect.
Absolutely. It'll be on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe and like.
Okay.
Hit that subscribe button. All right? We want you on there. Okay. Any last questions? Okay, I want to be cognizant of our time, so thank y'all so much. Appreciate you. Let me say one prayer real quick as we close up. Our Father in heaven, we just pray that you would be with us this morning. Continue to help us as we worship you together, as we go closer as a family, and be with us as we put this plan into action, God. As we execute, as we start making all the other little plans that have to be a part of this. Knowing that this is a road that we're going to be walking down, and we're not going to get to everything right away, but we're going to do our best, Lord, to accomplish. And along the way, Lord, you're going to guide us, you're going to move us, you're going to maybe even bring us, maybe even in a different direction, and we're going to be open to that, God, to what you have for us as leaders and as people. And I just pray that you continue to help us to be that church that loves its neighbors and is a neighbor in this community and beyond. Lord, I love you. I'm so thankful for these people. In Jesus' name I pray.